So, in the last class we were talking and we were proving that ATM is undecidable, right? Now, to prove that what we said let's prove it by contradiction. So in the proof we assumed, so we assume that ATM is decidable. When we do this assumption, what we actually assume in response is that there exists a machine, Turing machine D, that decides for ATM. Right. Now, this Turing machine decides for ATM. So, what was ATM? If you remember, ATM was what? ATM was containing a tuple of machine and a string, right? Such that M is a Turing machine that accepts W. So whenever you have a decider for ATM language, that means now whenever you pass in a machine M I and a string WI, whenever you're gonna pass it in this decider D, it is going to either accept or reject. When it accepts, it means that MI accepts W, right? Why does it mean like that? Because if this tuple is accepted by the decider, that means this tuple is part of this ATM, and if it is part of this ATM, then it means that MI accepts WI. If it rejects, that means this tuple is not part of this ATM language, and if it is not part of this ATM language, that means MI doesn't accept WI. So either it rejects it or it goes in loop on WI. Okay, so we assume that this decider D is there, and we called it as H in our. So let's say that this is H, not D for us. So we have assumed it as H in the previous class. So this H, machine H's existence, we have already assumed. This assumption derives this. Now, after this, what we are doing, because if this H exists, based on it, we are building a bigger decider machine. And how does it behave? So we said that we're gonna build a bigger decider machine D. Yeah, this is D. So we're gonna build a bigger decider machine, and what it does, it just flips the response of H when you pass in a machine's description to itself. So basically, if you take this bigger decider D, what it is doing, when you are passing any machine as a description, what it does, it says whenever you pass a Turing machine as an input to this decider D, it takes that machine and its description and it passes its description to that machine itself. So basically, it converts this into this form. So you have the machine and its own string representation again, and it is passed in to your decider H. Now, because machine's its own description is actually a string, so certainly H is going to decide on this tuple, whether this tuple will be part of ATM or it might not be part of ATM. If H says accept, what does it mean? If H says accept, it means that M accepts its own description, right? But if H says that reject, what does it mean? It means that M doesn't accept its own string representation. Correct? This is the result from this H. And because we have assumed that H exists, it is a oracle that whenever you pass in a string and a Turing machine, it is going to decide whether this tuple is part of ATM or not, and in response we will get to know that whether the string is accepted on that machine or not. I think that you have to understand. Having a decider for ATM means whether that Turing machine accepts that string or not. So that's what. As soon as it accepts, that means this tuple is part of ATM and therefore M accepts M. This is the conclusion you can derive from. And the same from rejecting, you can derive that M does not accept M. What we say for D, we say that whenever H is accepting, you say D does not accept. So D rejects. So after this, the D's definition is like that whenever you have accepted on H, it is going to reject. And whenever you have rejected on H, it is going to accept. Correct? So, in other words, when D is rejecting a machine description, if you have to conclude now for D, so this is my machine D, when you have to conclude when D rejects a machine's description, when actually that machine accepts its own description, then D rejects it. When that machine does not accept its own description, then this machine D is actually accepting for it. Right? Now we're gonna say that, okay, if H is a decider, correct? If H is a decider, this is just converting a string. You have taken a representation and you have formed it. So this is again, this overall, this D again becomes a decider if H is a decider. So D is also a decider. But the interesting question comes in when you actually pass in D's own description into the machine. When you're gonna pass in D's own description into D itself, what is going to happen? When it will arrive here, it will convert it into D and D, right? Because that is the job of that machine, this small component. Now after the conversion part, it will be passed into H. Now H is a decider, so it will take a call based on the decision. Either it says accept or it says reject. If it says accept, what does it mean? It means D accepts D. And if rejects it, the answer is D doesn't accept D. Correct? Because decider is going to either say accept or reject. That's why it's decider. So D on its own description will be either accept or reject according to H. And if it is accept, D accepts D or it rejects D. After this, what is going to happen? If H has accepted this thing, then it becomes reject. And when it becomes reject, what does it mean? That when you passed in D's own description to itself, it is being rejected here, right? So here it means that D rejects this machine. D rejects D, and here it means that D accepts D. What is the contradiction? The contradiction comes here. Your decider is saying that D accepts D, and it is happening when? When actually D was rejecting D. While when decider said D rejects D, actually your machine is accepting D. So there is a contradiction. You have assumed a decider, but the decider and the actual definition of D, what it is accepting or rejecting, that is not going together. And therefore definitely one of them might not hold true. And because this is the assumption based on which you have built this machine, so because of this contradiction your assumption gets violated. And that means this H cannot exist. And due to that, you prove that ATM is undecidable. Now, the interesting part is, you can ask, where is the diagonalization coming into the picture here? So, to visualize that, you have to make this table of all the possible Turing machines and its own description. Okay. So, if you see this table, what this table is for? It is that, let's say that this is your machine M1, M2, you have indexed the machine M3, M4 and likewise. And on the column side, you have its own description. So, you have M1, you have M2's description, you have M3's description and likewise. Now, M1 and M1, right, and let's say M4. Now, M1 is either going to accept its own description or it is going to reject it, right? So, let's say that it accepts its own description, it rejects M2, it accepts M3, it rejects M4. Similarly, M2 accepts M1, it rejects M2, its own description, it rejects third one. I am assuming it is not fixed. I am just taking some either accept or reject. Yeah.
Sir, what exactly do we mean when we say that M1 bracket is a description of M1? What exactly is a description?
Okay. So see, M is what? M1 is what? It's a Turing machine. So it has 7 components, right? You have set of state, you have delta, you have Q accept, Q reject, you have actually tape symbol, you have sigma, correct? Now, and I think 7 components are there, Q0. You take all these components and every component is a finite size component, right? So you represent each component in string form. Yeah, this you should have asked in the last class, by the way. Okay. So, see, for example, how many states are there? If you have to represent this whole thing into binary, can you do it? So, suppose that there are 10 states, correct? In the Turing machine. If there are 10 states, so there will be a finite number of transition table in the Turing machine. Finite, not infinite, right? Because if you say the simple for single tape deterministic Turing machine, the transition function is that Q cross tape symbol and it goes to Q cross tape symbol cross, Q cross tape symbol cross, left or right. Correct? So this table again will be of finite size. Then you have Q0, Q accept, this, that, and all this detail. I am just saying that this whole detail can be written in a string format. Just like if there is a video you are playing, don't you think that video is actually a string of bits? When you are writing a text or when you are writing a C program, correct? That C program is also can be converted into binary, 0 1s. And that's how computer actually processes it, right? So that's what we are saying, that anything that is there, a machine's description, it can be encoded as a string. And that encoding is represented by this M.
Okay, when we say that M1 accepts the description of M1, it means that M1 accepts that string.
Correct. So that string is any finite string, right? So it is part of sigma star again. If you have converted into that alphabet. So again, if it is based on some alphabet sigma 1, you can always convert into sigma, right? You can always change the bases and all that. So your encoding might be in some other base, but you can convert into some other base.
Hello.
Yeah.
Excuse me, sir.
Cor-
Prachit here.
Yeah, Prachi.
Sir, there is a very big network issue happening in my area. Sir, could you please record this session so that we can read it, like see it again later? The internet connection is very unstable right now.
Yeah, I think I recorded and posted the last class. I posted it very late yesterday night, but yes, I'm doing that. Don't worry.
You're recording the session, right?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So is it clear about this string description? And when you say that you are passing, and it is same like whenever you have a Turing machine M and you are passing W, this W can be also a description of the machine itself, right? Because that is a finite length string, part of sigma star. Is it clear or not? Anyone has any other doubt? Okay. Yeah.
This is a very small doubt. What does this signify? M accepts his description. What does this signify, and how did you prove the last one? I didn't get it actually exactly. The definition was not clear.
No. See, I'm not saying M. See, there is a whole sigma star out there, right? Out of this sigma star, M accepts only whatever the strings are in the language of M. Correct? Yes or no?
Yes.
Now, in sigma star, you will realize that description of M is also actually a member of sigma star. Yes or no?
Yes.
Right. So at some point of time, you might have also decided for this whether the description of that machine is accepted on that machine or not. So either this is part of LM or it is not part of LM.
Okay. So what does it signify if it is a part of LM?
It doesn't signify. It is going to help us prove that there cannot exist a decider for this ATM. ATM is what? ATM is just a machine that says that you have a decider, that whenever you pass in a machine and a string, it will tell you whether that string is going to be accepted or not. So we are proving that we can never have a decider for it. And in result, what we are saying, we can never build a decider such that you pass in a machine and you pass a string and I tell you that, okay, whether it will be accepted or rejected, there cannot exist that kind of oracle. Ever. And that oracle is again a machine, a Turing machine, we are saying.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think it's very important we understand what we are trying to do. Then only it would make more sense that what we are doing.
One last thing, sir.
Yeah.
Why are we doing that? Like, why do we need that type of assets? Why do we need to prove that?
Because we want to prove that there are some set of problems which are undecidable. See, we started from the theory of computation. See, when we prove that there are some languages for which we don't have a decider, that means we cannot solve the set membership problem for those sets which are formal languages. And that will prove that corresponding to that set membership problem, whatever the function you have, that cannot be computed or solved. Go back to the first lecture of TOC1. We were talking about a function and we said that this function can have a graph representation which gives us a set, and then we came to the set membership problem, and that set was representing, later on we said that we take the set as formal languages. And the set membership problem was to check whether a string belongs to a set. It became to the problem whether a string is part of a formal language or not. Correct? And we also proved in that class that if you cannot solve the set membership problem for a language, the corresponding function that you have taken, that will be uncomputable. And when we find a function that is uncomputable, that means you can never compute that function. You can never write a program to really compute that function. And that's what is our limit of computation and computers. That there will be some problems out there which you can never solve with the help of algorithms, computers, right? So we are, so far whatever we have seen, we were able to solve everything, the DFA problem and that. And when we entered into the Turing machine era, we realized that we were able to do basic computation, multiplying two numbers, checking whether it is a palindrome, checking this, that. It's like writing program for it, right? You can write a program even in a high level language. But now we are trying to find that, okay, we have seen many problems which are decidable. What do we mean by decidable? That there exists a Turing machine. See, whenever I say there exists a Turing machine, now you can also see that understand it in the other words, there exists an algorithm that solves. Decider means you have an algorithm that runs for a finite amount of time, and after that it solves that problem. Solving here means yes or no for the Turing machine, but there in terms of that, it solves your problem, terminates and gives you the output. So now we are hunting for a language for which we can never solve the problem. And that language, we said that is ATM. What is ATM? ATM is saying that you cannot design a machine which can, a universal machine that can actually, by taking any Turing machine and a string, can tell you whether that machine is going to accept it or not. So you cannot design a universal algorithm that can tell you whether this problem will be solvable or not. You get the answer? Are you able to understand what I am trying to say? So this universality to really tell whether a problem can be solved or not. See, because if you get such kind of powerful machine that can decide, you will realize that we can do a lot of things. But that's what we're gonna prove that, see, that ATM decidability is not going to hold. Why? Because ATM is decidable, it is going to take you to a contradiction. And what that contradiction is, and see, always remember, a Turing machine on a given input does one of the three things. Either it accepts the input, or it rejects the input, or it goes in loop. So when we say accepts the input, it means it is accepting. When we say it does not accept, it covers the rest of the two cases, that either it rejects or it goes in loop. So what we are trying to do so far is, we are showing that whenever you will have a decider for ATM, which is a formal language again. ATM is a formal language or not? ATM, if you see the description here, what is ATM? ATM is again a string set, right? It is containing finite length strings, where M is a Turing machine description and W is a string. See, for example, if you might have seen in the last lecture, there was, I can represent that G connected, and then I can say that the graph G as description such that G is an undirected connected graph. See, you have to understand, deciding this language is an equivalent problem to have an algorithm that can check whether the graph is connected or not. Yes or no? Tell me. If you understand that, then you will be able to correlate the following. Having a decider for this language, see what this language contains? It contains all the undirected graphs which are connected. Is it true or not? Having a decider for this language, what does it mean? That you have a Turing machine, whenever you pass in the description of a graph, it is going to accept or reject. When it accepts, what does it mean? That means that graph is in this language. When the graph is in this language, what does it mean? The graph is connected. When it rejects that decider, that means that is not in this language, and therefore that graph is not connected. So the existence of decider does what? It is actually an algorithm that is checking whether the graph is connected or not. This G is part of this language or not, this question is similar to whether G is connected or not. And G is connected or not is a real world problem. But that problem is now related to whether the description of G is part of G connected or not. So similarly, whether a machine accepts a string or not, that question has been converted into a set membership problem, and it checks whether this tuple is part of ATM or not. Any comments or any doubt? See, there is no use of me going ahead and covering a lot of syllabus until you guys understand this in detail. So please ask whatever the vague things are coming to your mind. I am okay explaining again and again. I don't mind discussing the same thing for the next lecture also, but you must understand this, because everything that is going to be built after it requires this understanding. And then only you qualify to get any passing grades for this course. That you understood what is undecidability. Please. Anyone? Whatever vague thing is coming in. Yeah.
So can you just briefly go about the contradiction proof again?
Sure. So, before that, do you understand what we are trying to do? That is very important. We are trying to prove that this ATM is undecidable, means ATM is what? It's a formal language. We are trying to prove that this language is undecidable, and proving that it is undecidable, what does it mean? That there cannot exist a Turing machine that can decide for this language. infinite amount of time. In other words, if you talk in terms of algorithm, we are saying that there cannot exist an algorithm that can solve the corresponding problem of ATM. And that gives evidence of the existence of some problem which cannot be solved by any algorithm in finite amount of time. So, do you all understand what we are trying to do? First tell me that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So to do that, we are trying to prove it by contradiction. So we say that let's assume that this ATM is decidable. Means it is like other languages which we have seen so far. So there exists a Turing machine that actually decides for ATM. Now when we say decidable, that means this thing, right? As we define a decidable or not decidable. So there exists some Turing machine H that decides for ATM. So what this H does, that's what is this diagram. That when you have this H and you're gonna pass in any tuple, a machine and a string into H, it is going to accept or reject for sure because it's a decider. You have assumed it like that. And it decides whether this tuple is going to be part of ATM or not. Correct? If it accepts, that means this tuple is going to be part of ATM. If this tuple is going to be part of ATM, what does it mean? As per the definition of the language, that means that machine in that tuple is a Turing machine that accepts the string in that tuple. So your Mi accepts Wi, that's what is concluded from here. But if this tuple is rejected here, what does it conclude? That this Mi does not accept Wi. Correct? Are we good up to this point? That if ATM is decidable, we have a machine like this H that does this. Whenever you pass in a Turing machine and a string, it takes the decision whether it is accepting or not accepting. When it says does not accept, that means it covers both the cases. When it says does not accept, it means either Mi is rejecting Wi or Mi goes in loop for Wi. Both the cases are here. So somehow this H has the power, you can assume, to detect whether Mi goes in loop on Wi. Somehow. That's what is our assumption actually. Somehow this H machine is able to detect when Mi goes in loop on Wi. That's what we have assumed. And we're gonna prove that no machine like this can exist that will have that kind of prediction power that predicts when a machine goes in loop on Wi or not. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So I hope you understood what is ATM, what does it mean that ATM is decidable as assumption, and the existence of H. Now when H already exists, based on H we are building another Turing machine and we're gonna say how that Turing machine behaves in. So we said that let's take this another Turing machine D. This machine D we are building. So this machine D does not take a machine and a string as an input. What is the input of this D? Can you tell? What is the input to this machine D?
The description of the Turing machine.
Yeah, we just pass in a Turing machine. See, in this we were passing in a Turing machine and a string as a tuple form, as a string form. But in D we are just passing in a machine. We are not passing any string with it. Is it okay? I can pass in, right? That's not a problem because anyway it's a string. So a string can be passed in to a Turing machine, and we are saying that we are constructing a Turing machine. So passing description of a machine is okay. So I am passing in a Turing machine to D. Now what D does? D actually converts this machine into this form. What it does, it's like you had this description on the tape, it takes again further, it appends that Turing machine with its own description. Is there any question that we cannot do or anything like that? It is just like once you get a Turing machine, you are just further taking its string format in coding and you are passing in that coding to that machine. So it is just, what is the job of this whole thing? The job of this component is just appending the machine's own description further inside that in a string form. So as soon as you add the string form of that machine, it starts behaving like a string to this machine M. Altogether this whole thing is a string, but for this M, this is just a string. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
So when you pass this whole encoding as a single string to this H, now what is the input to H? If you see previously, input to H was a machine and a string. When you got a machine, what you did, machine was that M itself, but at place of a string, you passed in further the string description of that machine, which is a string still. So that's okay for this step to pass in this part. When you're gonna pass in this M and string form of N to H, H is the decider. That is our assumption. So H is going to take a call as accept or reject, right? When H says accept, what does it mean? It means that M accept its own description, and when H says reject, what does it mean? M does not accept M. Are we good up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we said that this we are the designer of D. Correct? What we say, whenever this H is going to say accept, my D is going to say reject. And whenever H is saying reject, my D is going to say accept. Now you can say, why we are doing that? We are constructing a machine. So we can do anything. We can say accept here, reject here, or we can say flip of this. We are building a machine, so one cannot question why we are doing that. But by doing this, what we gain, that is the interesting part. When you say that whenever H accept this whole thing, my D is rejecting this. What do you mean by D is rejecting? D is rejecting what? Can you tell? What D is rejecting if it comes to this end? D can reject what was input to D only. Yes or no?
Yes.
So reject means D doesn't accept M. Yes or no? And when D accepts, that means what D does? D accepts M. That's all you can say, right? That this machine D either accepts whatever the input or it rejects the input. That's all you can conclude. Inside, how D acquires this decision is based on H. But outside, when the decision comes out, you can conclude only this much. D accepts the input or D does not accept the input. Is it okay? Because H is a decider you have assumed which is existing. So if H exists, then D will always exist. Whenever you give me H description, I can build this machine D always on top of it. But the interesting part comes in when this D runs on its own description. Now when you pass in this D at place of any arbitrary M, what happens? As same as M, D is also a Turing machine, right? So you can pass in its own description to itself. When you pass in this D, what happens? Same as M and encoding of M, it becomes D and encoding of D and it gets in pass to H. Now H is a decider. H is going to take accept or reject call. When it says accept, D accepts D as per H. So this decision that you have written here, it is as per H. And this decision that you have written, it is as per H. So this is what H is deciding and taking the call and telling you that D accepts its own description, D does not accept its own description. But what D does actually? Whenever H says accept, what D was doing? It was rejecting the input. As soon as D gets to know that this whatever the input is accepted, D rejects it. And reject means D does not accept M. So as soon as H on this particular input declares accept, it meant H meant that D accepts D. Here D is going to reject it, and rejecting will mean that D doesn't accept D. So here H is a decider and it is saying D accepts D, while D actually is not accepting D. But you assumed H is a decider which always get to know the right answer. And the same happens for the bottom one. When H says that D does not accept its own description, what D does? Because of the rejecting decision of H, D accepts whatever H has done. Because H has rejected, D accepts. And acceptance of D means D accepts D. So here the decider is predicting that D actually does not accept D, while D is actually accepting D. Because this is how we have built D. So at this point of time, what we get? Are we good up to this point of time? Do you follow?
Just one question.
Yeah.
We are disproving this for a particular ATM that it is undecidable. So
Not a particular. ATM is a single language which contains all possible Turing machines and corresponding strings. Hello? Hello?
yes, sir. Sir, so but here we are building a particular Turing machine D, and we are disproving that D is deciding it.
Right.
How does this prove that ATM is undecidable?
Yeah. So we are coming to that. Can you just, can you please unmute yourself, because I'm getting echo of my own. Please mute yourself. Unmute yourself only when you want to ask a question, and then you mute yourself back. Okay. Thank you. So, see, once we found this D, we are realizing that this decider that we said, what was this decider? This decider was for ATM. Means it decides for all possible Turing machines whether that machine accepts an input string or not. That decider is H. And we assume that it exists. And then we constructed a machine D which says that the machine in reality is accepting, but H says it doesn't accept. And the machine in reality is rejecting its own description, but H says it does not accept. So the decision of H and the reality, what D, that machine does, is actually contradictory to each other. Although we have built this D on top of H, but still D can exist if H is existing. You can take a Turing machine and convert into you can build another Turing machine on top of it. But H is a universal decider for all possible Turing machines. So H should have known already, but it is not possible. And that is why, because of this contradiction, something doesn't hold. And whenever we arrive at a contradiction, we go back and say that our assumption was incorrect. Right? That's how the proof of contradiction works. So everything that we have done from the assumption till now is based on fact. That yes, apart from this assumption, we have not taken any other assumption. Apart from this assumption, everything went fact by fact. It's a decider, so it does like that. Because it's a decider, so we can build a bigger decider on top of it based on this. But after building this decider, we realize that this decider D and the answer according to H doesn't go together, they contradict each other. And that contradiction helps us declare that whatever the assumption we have taken is incorrect. And therefore this ATM is undecidable. Okay, we'll come back to that. Let's just try to see what we are trying to do here. Okay, let's take a new slide and then again do it. So just try to see, just wait for 5 minutes and then we'll again return back if it is not clear. So let's say that, so we are not considering all possible strings for the Turing machine. We are just talking about a Turing machine and Turing machine's descriptions, only those strings. So M1, M2, M3, M4, and likewise this is list of all possible Turing machines that can exist. Again, here you have M1 as the string representing M1, M2 is the string form of whatever is M2, M3 is the string encoding of M3, M4 is the string encoding of M4, and likewise. So the row wise you have all the Turing machine, the column wise you have all the string encoding of those Turing machines, and so on. Now M1 actually is tested on all possible languages sigma star to decide which languages are part of LM1 or not. But we just want to see how does it behave on its own description. So we can take some arbitrary inputs here and you can see whatever input doesn't matter. So M1 might accept or reject, I don't care, but let's say it is accepting its own description. On M2 it is also accepting. M3 we don't know. M4 we don't know, right? It doesn't accept. Now M2 might accept just for M2 and M4, but for the rest of this we don't know the answer. M3, what it does? It accepts M1 and M4, but it doesn't behave on the other. And M4, it might be just accepting M4. Correct. So what is this? This is whether the machine accepts its input or not. So here you said that machine accepts for these two, but other descriptions of the other Turing machines, it doesn't comment because it is not able to take the final decision. We did not say that these Turing machines are decider, first of all. The Turing machines here that you have mentioned, these are all Turing machines. So it might be a decider, it might be just a recognizer. So for a string, it is able to, and see, every Turing machine is either a decider or a recognizer. There cannot be any other option. So certainly for acceptance, it will always be able to make a call, but for rejecting or going in loop or does not accepting, we cannot decide just by looking at every possible Turing machine. Is it clear? But once you take this and you take help of H, this whole table changes into a new table. How? When you take help of H and you pass in a machine Mi and description of Mj to H, you will be able to fill in the whole entries of the table, even the missing ones. How? In this new table, still you have M1, M2, M3, M4 and all the entries. And here this M1, M2, M3, M4 and likewise. Now, because M1 was accepting these two, so you knew that M1 accepts it. So here H says accept and accept, but H is a decider, so it doesn't leave blank. So whenever H gets to know that it was not accepting there, it rejects it. In the second row, you will have reject, accept, reject, accept. M3 does what? M3 you have accept, reject, reject, accept, and here you have reject, 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 accept. So when you apply this decider on this table, you will have all the entries filled in. The missing entries are replaced by reject. Why? Because the decider knows, decider is able to predict when it goes in loop. If it doesn't go, certainly after some time it is going to halt and reject. So decider is able to fill all the entries. Yes or no? So this table is based on when you passed in this into H. This is the original decision whatever was there. When you pass in the description to M1, M2 and like that. Okay, this is there. Now when you build this input to D, how it is going to behave. That's what is the interesting part. So when you take the table for D and you try to write the answers for D. So these answers are written as per H. These answers are the original answer. Now you are going to write the answers as per D. So you have your M1, you have M2, you have M3, you have M4, right? And you have this M1, M2, M3, M4. See, D doesn't bother about other entries. What D bothers about? When you pass in a machine's description to itself. Yes or no? So D will just focus on the entries this one, this one, this one, this one. When you are passing M1 to M1 itself, M3 to. And what D does? When H is having the diagonal entry as accept, it mentions reject. When H says M2 accepts M2, what it does? It accepts. Sorry, it rejects. When M3 is rejecting M3, it says accept. And when M4 is accepting M4, it says reject. Are we good up to this point of time? Hello? Is it clear what D is doing? Now, that's very good. But can you tell me in this table only, when you arrive at this D and this D, what will be filled in? Can you tell me? Because D is a Turing machine, right? And you will also have description of D somewhere in the row and the column. So when you will arrive at this entry, can you tell me what will be the answer in this table?
It won't be consistent with the expected value.
Yeah, because if you see the D here, correct, let's assume that this is the entry of D in the table for H. This is some answer X, let's say, correct? As per D, what it should be? What it should be? Tell me.
Negation of X.
Right. Let's say denote by this, negation of X. That if it is X, it should be negation of X. But see, this D to itself, this value is present here also, right? If you go here in this, what is the value here? If H is saying X, what does it mean? What will be the value here? If H is saying X, what should be the value here?
If X is A, then it will be A. If X is R, then it will be applied.
Correct. So it is according to X only, right? So if X is accept, so it is A. If X is blank, it is R. Yes or no?
Yes.
But here what D does? It says X complement. That means if it is A, here it is R. If it is R, here it is A. The original answer of D on D itself is as per somehow aligning with H's decision. Yes or no? But when you see in this table, it is completely against it. So that is the original contradiction that creates a problem, that D originally was saying something else, but when it saw H, it is started saying something else. So what should it be filled? Will it be X or X complement? And that's what is the confusion. There are two possible values, and that cannot be true for a machine. A Turing machine either goes to Q accept, or it goes to Q reject, or it goes in loop. But here D says for certain it accepts or rejects. because D is a decider. If D is a decider here, so D was a decider here also. But if it was a decider, so its answer will be aligned with whatever is the answer of H, yes or no? But then here, when you return back again to D, it is actually giving you answer opposite of H. And that's what this whole complication is same as if you go back and try to see for the real numbers, the diagonal method that you have used, that as per the assumption that there exists a mapping, this D will be existing at some point of time. And that dth bit, you are saying that it is differing in exactly in that place. How is it possible? So when we said there exists a mapping, it is similar to we are saying there exists a decider. And as per that decider, because this D is also a machine, same as when we said that if it is a real number, it will be having some indexing, right? So in some row it is going to be present. And when you will go to the dth column, the indexing column of that particular row, this D as per its definition, same as the binary string that you have taken, the decimal string, real number that you have taken, that ith place was differing with itself. But how is it possible that a number is, although it is same to that number, but it is differing at some place? So the same kind of contradiction arrives at the using this diagonalization method. Are you able to really correlate? Tell me frankly. Or should we try to look upon it again? The proof that we did for the real numbers to prove that it is uncountable, and the proof here we are doing, are you able to see the similarity? That the assumption gives us the existence that it is going to exist somewhere, and when you will go to that row, it is the definition, how you have defined that real number. There you are defining the real number, here you are defining a machine that is going to exist in that row. And that real number was contradicting its own existence, that it is, although it is the same real number, but it is differing at some place. How is it possible? Here what is happening, although this is a Turing machine that is going to exist there, but it is differing its decision to its original decision because of the decider. And hence contradiction. So tell me if you did not be able to follow this.
It's clear, sir. Thank you.
Anyone? Anyone else? Anyone has any question to it? And when you prove the contradiction, what we actually got, that see, the initial assumption that you have taken cannot be true, and that means this existence of H is not possible. That means we cannot have any algorithm that can decide for ATM, and therefore this ATM is undecidable. So it is the first formal language that you have identified for which there does not exist any algorithm that can solve this. It is the first set for which you cannot solve the set membership problem. Yes or no? We are not able to solve the set membership problem for this. What was the set membership problem? It was exactly whether you take a string, is it part of this language or not? We are not able to decide that question, right? When you pass in this string to algorithm, whether accept or reject, we don't have a clear-cut decider. That means we are not able to solve the set membership problem for ATM formal language, which is a set of some strings. So this is the first set we have encountered so far since we started the course of TOC. It's a first set of as a formal language for which we are unable to solve the set membership problem. What does mean? That the corresponding problem to this in the function dimension is uncomputable. Whatever this set is representing, whatever function, that function is uncomputable. You can never compute that function, whatever the device, whatever the algorithm you write. Because in the whole universe, you cannot write any algorithm that can do it. A very strong statement. Is it okay with everyone? Good. Okay, then let's see another small interesting lemma out of it. So, if you remember this kind of diagram where there was regular languages, there were some, what we say, context free languages, then there were context sensitive languages, but let's skip that. Then we realized that there are these recursive languages which are actually the decidable ones. Recursive means as per the Turing machines which are deciders. So this is a decidable languages. And outside decidable, although there was a set which was it was recursively enumerable languages. So it was based on the recognizers, recognizable languages. So we already proved that outside this bubble, we got a proof of existence of a language which is ATM. So ATM is certainly beyond this boundary, right? Beyond this red boundary. ATM is beyond that. It is certainly outside of this. That we have proved that this ATM. Now this ATM is there, but ATM is a Turing recognizable, right? We have already proved, because ATM, whether a machine accepts an input, only that part, rejects or not, that is not a question. That part is Turing recognizable. So whenever acceptance is there, that you can always do. So this ATM actually belongs here. Now the question is, can you find a string which is even outside this bigger bubble, this blue bubble? So this blue bubble is representing all the Turing recognizable languages, recursively enumerable languages. So we want to know existence of one such language which is not even Turing recognizable. So even your that this 10th problem, whether there is an integral root for polynomial, even that problem was not decidable, but it was Turing recognizable. So it also falls in between the red and blue boundary. It falls in that region. But we want to also explore even beyond that. Is there something which is not even Turing recognizable? Let's try to see that. So there is a very interesting theorem, and that theorem helps us to find it. So the theorem says that a language is decidable if and only if it is Turing recognizable and co-Turing recognizable. What does it mean by co-Turing recognizable? That if there is a language, so when you say it is a Turing recognizable, this language is Turing recognizable if there exists a Turing machine M that recognizes L. The meaning of it is co-Turing recognizable. It means that there exists a Turing machine M dash that recognizes L complement. Understand this. You say a language is co-Turing recognizable if its complement, the language's complement is Turing recognizable. So we say co-Turing recognizable. So that means there exists a Turing machine that accepts all those strings which are not part of this language. But for the strings which are part of this language, it cannot decide. That is that M dash. But this M is able to accept all the strings which are part of the language, but it cannot take a call for the strings which are not part of L. Right? So deciding is not the power of M and M dash. But if a language is Turing recognizable and co-Turing recognizable at the same point of time, so certainly that language is decidable. So to prove that one direction, if you want to prove that if it is decidable, it is both, it is very trivial. Because if it is decidable, that means you have a decider D for this language, right? And the accepting decision and rejecting decision, you have both as per the decider. So when you have this decider may work as a Turing recognizer and co-Turing recognizer same at the same time. How? Because whenever you pass in a string as an input and it says accept, what does it mean? That a string is part of L. It says reject, that means that a string is not part of L. So for the recognizer that you want to build for this language, it is very simple. Whenever that acceptance coming from D, you also accept. That's all. Because for the recognizer part, you just want to do that. And for the co-Turing recognizer part, whenever this decider for this language is rejecting, you accept on M2. Why? Because M2 then becomes a decider for the complement of that language. So for the rejecting part, the opposite you are not declaring, you are only talking about one section. Is it clear? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So one direction is very trivial, that if you have a decider, certainly the decider has both power, accepting and rejecting. So one direction, it is a recognizer also, because every decider is a recognizer. But if you take the rejecting decision, it is actually recognizer for the complement language also. So that's why whenever you have a decider, you have the language as recognizable and co-Turing recognizable both. Now let's see the vice versa thing. So we are saying that a language L is Turing recognizable and co-Turing recognizable. You should prove that it is also a decidable language. So because this is a Turing recognizable, what does it mean? It means that we have some machine M1 that recognizes the language, and we have some machine M2. So this M1 recognizes for L, and this L1, and M2 recognizes for L1 complement, right? Now we have to build a decider based on this M1 and M2. So what that decider is going to do, the description is very easy. What it says, On input some string w, what you gonna do? Step 1 is very simple. Run both machines in parallel. Run both M1 and M2 on W. Right? How can we run both machines on W? Because you can put it in the description on two different tapes and continuously run them on a string. When you are running both M1 and M2, both are recognizers, remember. So certainly one of them will halt at some point of time and accept it. Is it true or not? M1 and M2 both are recognizer. So either M1 is going to accept W or M2 is going to accept W at some point of time for sure. Because W is part of sigma star, so either W goes in L1 or W goes in L2. L1 complement, sorry, not L2. So if W is part of L1, M1 is going to halt and accept, and if W is part of L1 complement, MT is going to halt and accept it. And in that case, what you have to say, if M1 accepts, then what? If M1 is accepting, that means W is part of L1, then as per the decider for L1, you should also accept. But if M2 accepts, what do you mean? If M2 is accepting that string, that means that string is part of L1 complement. So for the decider of L1, what call you should be taking? Reject. So this M is a decider machine for L1. So this M is a decider machine for L1. Right. So we proved for both the directions. So it's proved that whenever it is a decider, we can have a recognizer and co-Turing recognizer for complement and that language itself. And when you have recognizers for both sides, you can build a decider based on that. This theorem, remember very clearly and understand it very clearly. Why? Because it will be used in a different way for other proofs also. But interesting part you can derive after using this theorem. ATM is Turing recognizable. And then we got the proof that is not Turing decidable. What can you? So this is two facts that you have understood. Based on the theorem, what can you say? Anyone? It's a simple deduction, right? Using that theorem, what can you comment? Anyone? Very good, Jyotika. That means ATM is, the conclusion that you will be able to get is ATM is not co-Turing recognizable. Because if ATM is Turing recognizable and ATM is not co-Turing, ATM was also Turing recognizable, so it should have been decidable. But if ATM is Turing recognizable and ATM is not decidable, the only thing that would have been gone wrong is that ATM is not co-Turing recognizable. Or in other words, if you take this ATM complement language, this is not Turing recognizable. ATM complement. So if you go to this bubble part, this bubble that you are searching is actually ATM complement. So you found a language which is outside the bubble of even blue. That means ATM complement is a language which is not even Turing recognizable. You cannot even write a recognizer for it. What is ATM complement language? You should try to see the description of ATM and then try to understand. So if you have doubt in terms of to prove that ATM is Turing recognizable, I think you should go to page 202 of the Sipser book or theorem 4.11 where we start the undecidability. There the recognizer is already given in that section and it is proven that ATM is Turing recognizable. I think I might have missed that part, but you can go to that and find it.